We're here to talk about Attack on Titan chapter 63. Now, this chapter was quite ridiculous. Just the way that the author portrays the story is just ingenious. I know they're making it into a movie in like 2 years, but it's not going to be the same because of just there's certain intangible things. Well, not really intangible, but subtle qualities to how the story is depicted that I don't think any sort of adaptation by another person will pick up. Heck, I don't even know if the author would realize this on a conscious level to the point that if he were even asked to create a film adaptation or anime adaptation, that it would be picked up in the same way. Having said that, though, the anime's done a decent job of doing so. So what am I talking about? It's just like certain aspects of the montage, the way it's laid out. It's very abstract. There's a lot of mystery to it. Specifically, though, there's this one scene towards the end of this chapter where Levi asks, he asks Aaron's friend, I forgot her name, if she's had any experiences in her life where she feels like an enormous power just wells up inside of her, and she admits that she did. And you're like wondering what's going on? Does she have superpowers or something? Does she have some additional hidden talent? Perhaps this is a new form of power that doesn't necessarily turn you into a Titan, but also gives you supernatural powers of some sort. Then Levi admits that he himself has had this, and so has Kenny the Ripper. And in addition to this, right after this has been revealed, we're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And boom, it switches back to Aaron, and all you see are these huge panels with no dialogue whatsoever, just him chained up once again, and it's very dramatic. And then you see Historia, who is now on the flip side. When she was just a few moments ago, she was more or less still on Aaron's side. Sure, she was starting to sway already, just being so shocked at how her father was so loving to her when she first sees him for the first time. But I feel like, at least for me, I that might be somewhat surprising. But generally, you'd still be on edge. You'd still realize this isn't someone you just want to be friends with. Our mission is to capture this king, at the very least. And then, once she regains at least part of her memories, I don't think they're completely all of her memories. Maybe they are. Then other stuff happens, such as the fact that now she seemed like based off the panels where she's staring at Aaron, and then you see tears form in her eyes, and a slightly angry look on her face. It looks like she has turned against Aaron based off what her father has told her about how her family members died. So obviously she's caught in the moment of remembering. And okay, now that I think about it, I do think that may be the only memories that she really had that were wiped from her, because again she lived in that isolated area. But she's definitely siding with her father now, it seems, more and more after. I mean it makes sense too, because if you were in that situation and your parents and all your siblings were killed as well, and not necessarily the person who did it, but their son was in front of you, you sort of get some sort of angry urge to do something about it. And I definitely see that in Historia. And by the way, she looks much nicer with her hair down. And I don't know, it's just like, I feel like she was always a guy before this, even though we knew she was a girl. But anyways, the whole thing with the flashback, though, not really a flashback, but just a recollection of events. When I was observing the whole thing, it just seemed like, and perhaps it was just me, but It was very almost common sense to me because I always take things with a somewhat skeptical view just in case, especially with something like Attack on Titan, where it's always like a plot twister. It just seems like that's not the whole side of the story. And based on the 63 chapters so far, I think I've gotten a good enough sense of how the author spins things. And I don't think these are the full things. If anyone does, you really need to sort of check yourself, because I just felt like there was such common sense and such an easy trap for ignorant readers to fall into. And I feel like it's this sort of plot device has been overdone. But what it is you see this sort of you see this sort of recollection of an event intended to pull your heartstrings, and then in the next chapter they'll be like, nope, those were actually the good guys, not the bad guys. So in this case, you see this whole recollection of Aaron's father, you know, depicted as this sort of dark villain. You don't see him talk, but then he turns into a Titan and starts, massacring. First he destroys that female Titan, rips out her throat, pulls out her skeleton, and then like throws her head on the ground, acquiring her power, some invincible power. Perhaps it's the power Aaron has now, the sort of power to call everything, or command all Titans. Who knows? Maybe it's something else. And by the way, Aaron's father in Titan form he's obese. He's very much obese. But anyhow, so you get your heartstrings pulled, because then you see a very gruesome depictions and elaboration in text of how all of her many siblings were brutally murdered, even the 10-year-old and the wife, by Aaron's father in Titan form. And lo and behold, I'm sure most of the crowd's like, oh my goodness, Aaron's father is so evil, he's such a crooked, evil person. But again, we haven't seen the full picture. Like, this is why if I see some sort of complicated argument going on between strangers while I'm walking on the street, I don't just jump in there and try and solve things. You don't know the full story. Even though this person looks like he's the person who's evil, perhaps he's the one who's being taken advantage of, because it's a complicated situation. We don't know what's going on. So that's what I feel. And again, it's depicted later on in this I guess it's sort of hinted at later on in this chapter, because then towards the end you see a minor flashback in Aaron's head, and you see Aaron's father like crying and saying, you will be the one to avenge your mother. And then I think Aaron says something like, affirmative, I will do this. And then he goes back. Again, it's so abstract, and we don't, it's hard to piece together, especially again, the most interesting thing is all the memories Aaron has now regained. And it seems from the ending of this chapter that he is very, very angry, and it seems like he is almost assuredly certain that the bad guy in all of this is the person right before him, Historia's father. You can tell it. He's trying to rip apart the chains, and you can't do, who knows why, but to activate your power you need to like prick yourself and let blood gush through. So he can't do that until he breaks the chains and hurts himself somehow. But again, there's some loopholes to that don't really make sense to me. What if you accidentally get pricked by a thorn or something that you don't notice? Or what if you just bite your tongue? Perhaps that doesn't work, because you don't really draw blood from your tongue unless you cut it in a certain way. More so than that, I feel like you'd have to bite your tongue off completely, like a chunk of it off completely, before you draw blood from it. So to do that, like, realistically, it's like not worth it at all. Who knows? I don't think the authors consider that. Perhaps, if it's a final straits sort of, I guess you could say, dire situation, perhaps knowing that he will die later on, he might bite his tongue off. I don't think that's what the authors considered yet, though. but it's possible. He might, he might think to himself, I have two choices: die now, or bite my tongue off now, have the potential of killing this guy, the possibility. Even if I don't, I can survive, and I might not be able to communicate with my mouth anymore, but I can write out whatever I want to everyone who's out and about, and get back to my allies. Who knows? But generally, I feel like it's not the whole story. Who knows who's right or wrong? Perhaps they're not. But what has been revealed in this chapter is finally a confirmation of one of my predictions that I've been saying for a long, long time. And a lot of people, I feel like, they may have discounted me, but I think it's right. And it's been proven. And it's the fact that the central government, or at least like the inner workings of this whole organization, at least the Rice family, they have some control of Titans at the very, very least. Why? Because for one thing, they have one of their children knows how to transform into a Titan, and not only that, holds some sort of invincible power of the Titan, of Titans. So it's like it's definitely clear now that the government is somehow related to this whole Titan orchestration. It's not just these monsters, these mysterious monsters that live outside of this humanity. No, the government is behind this. And again, there's already been evidence of this in the whole fact that the walls were built based off these Titans living, in between the walls. I feel like they needed to construct the walls quickly, so the quickest way to do that and shave off a lot of time was to have the Titans stand there, fall asleep, and then build the walls around them somehow. But the whole thing's like, another huge revelation in this chapter was the whole memory thing, the memory loss thing, and the needles, which seem to induce memory loss in those who are not of royal blood. Royal blood people are somehow immune to it. And again, those people who were captured and tortured, that I guess it was the fake king. Maybe it wasn't fake king. Who knows who it was? But one of the government members was flipped upside down, naked, and then he has to drink his own defecation or something like that, and be ridiculed on a march. He and a lot of the other higher ups who have been captured now are saying it won't matter. Pretty soon, all of you guys will forget everything, and that would be that. And it seems to be stated that the reason is because Aaron's cry, once it's obtained, will somehow be able to be projected vocally through sound somehow, which will, act as some sort of beacon to wipe everyone's memory somehow. But then we have these needles, which also seem to inject some sort of substance that, at least from what I can tell in this chapter, seems to also possibly be a memory wiper. So we don't know what's going on, why this king, the real king, wants to wipe Aaron's memories. Who knows what's happening, why Aaron's father wiped his memories, or more so why Aaron, the king, wanted to unwipe their memories. Isn't that a bad move? And on top of that, now that Aaron's knows all of this stuff now with his memories unwiped, what will he do? And now he probably has a greater picture on this. Again, there's a lot of things in Attack on Titan and a lot of manga that you can analyze to death, but just based on the nature of it, there's so many potential ways it can go. It's not like you can't just logically reason it out, because it's open-ended for a variety of reasons. By definition, by being open-ended, it could be a lot of different things, and more so than that, the author has all this potential, if he chooses to make this up as he goes, to choose any of those potential ways it goes. So there's a lot of mystery and therefore a lot of potential ways this can go. That's all we want to say. As always, like, favorite, comment, subscribe. That's all for Attack on Titan 63. See you in my next video.